What's good, everyone? My name is Andy too, and I'm a filmmaker from Oakland, California, now based in New York City. And as you guys have been following along on this series, we've gone over the pre-production process up into the shoot. And now we're currently at my favorite part of this series, which is bringing it all together in post-production. Throughout this video, we'll go over some of my personal favorite techniques. We'll go over organization, we'll go over a little bit of sound design, and we'll do some editing together. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about my post-production process, let's get into it. First and foremost, we're dumping our media. This is usually day by day. We'll go into this Lexar workflow system where I already have a CF Express Type A reader that's plugged in, and this workflow has CF Express Type B, SD, and also CF Express Type A, and also it has a couple ports for some 4 terabyte drives. So the naming convention I usually go with is year, month, and date. So I'll go 2025, today's May 21st. Then I'll do underscore, and then whether it be the project title or the day, for us, we're gonna call this the creative athlete. And then inside of this folder, we'll have I usually go year, month, date as well, just for better organization. So I'll go 2025, 0521, day 1. And then day 1, and we started off with the boxing scene, and then we went to suit supply, and then we ended off at B&H. And inside of this folder will contain our first camera, which is the FX3 that we filmed on, and then also the FX6 as well. And usually if I have multiple cameras, just say I had 2 FX3s, I would name it FX3-1 and FX3-2, just so it's more simple for me when I'm going into my editing process. And then let me show you guys an example of what it would actually look like if it was fully built out. So this is my recent Monaco project, and I got days 0 to 1, 2, 3, and inside day 1 have the cameras that I used. So DJI Mini 4 Pro, FX3. One of the videographers helped me, so I was able to obtain his footage. I shot also on my phones, and I also shot on the Osmo Pocket 3. And this all lives in the first day. And then there's all these other subfolders that you could sort of build out. You could do it beforehand, or you could do it as you're editing. I usually do it as I'm building stuff out. So I'm downloading videos from YouTube, like a trailer, for reference, for inspiration, a couple different YouTube videos, the GoldenEye scene. I downloaded some video from Storyblocks, which is a royalty-free website where you could download footage and use for your own projects. I also got some voiceovers in here, sound effects, music, which I sourced from Epidemic Sound. Every once in a while, I compose my own music as well. I also create my own sound effects. And then I have some logos that I also grabbed from online. And then I have the export folder where everything sort of lives at in the end. And then we jump into building out the library. And the application that I use, and I've been using for the past 10 plus years, is Final Cut Pro 10. There are a bunch that's on the market now. DaVinci is a free alternative. You can go with Premiere Pro, which is a monthly subscription. And I personally use Final Cut Pro because I've invested into it since I was in college. I paid the $300 price tag, and since then I haven't had to pay anything more than that. This is a project that's already fully built out, but what we're going to do is we're going to build out a new library, sort of under that same file structure that we've been going with, which is year, month, date, 5/21. the creative athlete. So you might notice on this left side that I have all my libraries dated in this file structure of year, month, date, underscore what the video title is about. I think as an editor, it helps me organize my mind and also just makes me feel a little less anxious when it comes to getting into the post-production lab because I know where everything is. And once you have that sort of mental clarity, it helps you organize your thoughts and ideas to really translate what's going on up here through the script or through that plan that you had and actually laying it out onto the timeline. And usually when you create a timeline or when you first start out as a blank slate, I usually like to start with like V's. Not industry standard, but a lot of people in the industry start off with V for like version, and then we'll call this V1, and then I'll just call this the platform that we're creating for, which is YouTube. And then I'll go in and I'll change the title later, but to keep it super simple, let's just call this V1 YouTube. And then inside of here, we don't have much. It defaults to creating a new events folder, which has today's date on there. And something that I'm going to give to you guys that's been a part of my creative process, something that I've created called a storytelling template. It's a Final Cut Pro library. So there's 11 different text titles, and depending on the end goal of the video, just say the video that you want to create is 11 minutes. Each one of these are set to 1 minute. So you at least have some kind of structure as to how long the video is going to be. And then obviously you could go in and adjust and make it 30 seconds for each section if you want. But throughout this template, the first one is the call to action. Second one is assistance, departure, trials, approach, there's a crisis, and then crisis or like climax of the film. Then you find a treasure, then there's a result, then you return to home, there's a new life, and there's a resolution. What I've been developing as a storyteller is using this as the base, but not always following it depending on the project. So if you have an 11-minute video, each of these sections would be about a minute each. If you have a 1-minute video, each one of these sections would technically be like 6 seconds each. So this technique could be both used long form and short form, depending on how you want to use it. And since we're working on a short film together, we're going more so for long form. So each one of these sections should be about a minute each. The more time I have in pre-production, the more time I'm able to gather my ideas and thoughts and place them into my storytelling template. Sometimes I would just show up on scene and get coverage. I'm gonna insert clips of me playing basketball like in Chinatown, and I shot that a couple months ago. But when I was in Chinatown shooting the footage, I didn't necessarily have my full story written out, but I knew that it is along the theme of me playing like a sport. So as long as I got the coverage, then I could just plug it in later on. So I think the biggest takeaway is get coverage, shoot it with whatever camera you have access to. And the more content that you have to play with, the more options you'll have in post-production when you get into the editing lab. Now that everything's in the library, I have the 3 days of footage that we shot at the Nike headquarters, in the lab, over at Meta, also at B&H on the roof, Suit Supply. And it's also organized by camera. So everything that we shot on FX3 falls into the FX3 keyword collection. And then everything that we filmed on FX6 is also in the FX6 keyword collection. When you start a new project, it usually starts here. And I'm just gonna go into the custom settings, and I'm going to name this YouTube or V1 YouTube. And then I think it's going to, I'll just name this YouTube 2. And then the video format that we went for was 4K at 3840 by 2160. And everything else looks pretty spot on, so I'll just hit OK. And now we have a blank slate. At this point, there's really no one rule as to where you can start. Some people like to start with music. They let the music drive the inspiration. Sometimes I refer to my notes, editing in a more linear fashion, or editing the footage in regards to like continuity. So like in the way that we shot it. And some people like to go off a script. And I think for today, for us at least, the simplest way for us to start is to actually just go off of script. And we'll go into this Nike headquarters day. And the first sort of line of dialogue is, the sunlight filters in through the skylights above, the court echoes with sneaker squeaks and the soft bounce of the ball, and Andy is shooting by himself. So the establishing shot is sort of just, if we could go in and just find some B-roll of the actual location. So this looks like one, and we just want something sort of to establish the scene. So this would be a pretty good shot to start with. So if I make an in and out point, I'll just add this to the timeline. It looks kind of like that. And then it could instantly cut to a shot of me shooting by myself or entering in. So this is a shot that Chris got of me coming up the stairs. And then we're walking through, going through the gates. I might actually, for a shorter take, start at the second wall. Cutting on the walls because it gives it like an in-camera transition. There's nothing that we have to add in post. So if we go from here to here, it's like quick, easy on the eyes. And I could go in and do like a mass transition, but for this, I think it's good enough. So after this, I think we cut into a close-up of me walking. Which leads into me placing my camera bag down and opening. And then we cut into the zipper opening. The pace I'm sort of going for is just like something that's a little more entertaining and just like keeps your audience engaged. But we don't have to show the whole process of me walking over to where I'm walking over to and placing the bag completely down. I think enough for it to get the point across. So after that's placed, I think we cut over to the shot of me actually getting the basketball. Oh, I actually lace up too. So let's get the end of the lace up. After we get our sort of initial cuts, we'll go in and select some music too to sort of bring it all together. So like, I think for me in my creative process, especially with time being of the essence, I like to shoot 40 edit. There are other ways of filming coverage, but when I do get to shooting, I am very intentional with my shots. I try to be mindful of where the shot ends and also where the shot begins. So when it does come to the editing process, I'm pretty dialed in and know exactly what I want to lay out on the timeline before we even get to this point. And we're currently editing for John stepping onto the court and holding the ball, grinning. So at this point, let's see. So I'll just take this one make. There we go. This should be it.
Yo!
So it does have to like cut together and follow some kind of continuity. So these two shots don't really work. I need something like in between these two shots. So let's try to find something. I guess it could be like a close-up of just me shooting. So maybe this might work. Let's see how this.
Andy, it's good, bro. How's it been?
How you been? How you been?
You good?
Okay, let's see.
So I know that we shot this in multiple takes so that I could have something to cut to. And let's just see where that is. So the dap up is here,
You good?
which will be an easy thing for me to cut. And I could just throw that on top as B-roll.
How you been?
You good?
How you been?
You good?
So I think from here, I could already just cut to the next scene. All right, I think we could kind of cut it there. And then as we move forward, he delivers a line of how long has it been since you've been hooping? Or how long has it been?
How long has it been though?
It's been a minute. I fell off there since I moved in here.
Hey, it's been a while.
So there's a gap of like, with that line of dialogue of how long I've been hooping, there's like an opportunity for me to really like put in some VO, giving the audience some context that leads into this line of how long has it been. So I would go in with something along the lines of, and this is like pure improv, just to drive the story and make it a little more engaging and compelling. And I would say something along the lines of, like, ball used to be life. Like back in the days, ball used to be life. Something that could be relatable towards the basketball community, where it would just instantly click when people hear it and see it. So it could be something like Once Upon a Time, or like back then, ball was life. And then I'll go in and I'll just sort of lay out that VO using my USB mic.
How you been?
You good?
So I could go in here and I'll just go to voice, record voiceover. And then I just select my Rode USB mic. Hello. Just hit this record button. Back then, ball was life. Back then, ball was life.
How long has it been though?
Then I would go into scenes of old footage of me playing AAA basketball, me in different uniforms, me playing basketball in Oakland, which was kind of like my old stomping grounds. And then it would cut into John delivering the line of, how long has it been? And then I should make the shot or not make the shot, depending on whatever looks good. So I think at this point, the video that we sort of cut together is pretty straightforward. What we could dive into next is sort of going into music. For music, we have a couple different options. We have Epidemic Sound, which I like using, but you can also get free music from like YouTube. They have like a whole library available, and you kind of just have to go through them and listen. The difference though between using something like Epidemic Sound is you get access to, just say for instance, like audio tracks. If I go in here and go into the hip hop section, you know, it tells you everything from the BPM, different moods, different genres. And if you do decide to download, you could download different tracks, different stems. Sometimes I'll listen to a thing and I'll only be interested in the drums, and I'll only use the drums. But let's download this just as a reference, and we'll do the stems. And then we'll also create a new folder called music. And then a subfolder called epidemic sound. And then we'll download this, and then we'll also go in here and we'll download this champion song from YouTube, but we'll put it in the subfolder of YouTube music. And then afterwards, we go into our folder and look at the music that we downloaded. And now you can see that it's broken down into stems. So where it's just the drums. This is the instruments or instrumental. And then we go ahead and download like the full track as well. Brings everything together. So also for this, I could just make a note that I want to do a supercut of Basketball Journey. And then we'll come back to that. So this left side of my monitors, I usually like to have my sound effects in my music library just easily accessible. So I could just go in here into the music tab, go into the music, and just literally be able to drag and drop this. So let's also audition the two songs that we ended up picking. This champion song and this fire song. So depending on the vibe that we're going for, that was more like a chill kind of vibe. This one seems a little more aggressive. And what you decide to pick is your own creative taste. One song might resonate a little bit more to the story and then another. I think for us today, we're gonna go for more like a chill kind of vibe. So we're gonna go with the free YouTube option. And then we could dictate how long the takes are depending on the music. Instead of just cutting to action, I think we could just cut to tempo. Make some micro adjustments here. Do a little trim edit to see where the shot ends with the shoelace tying, and then have that cut to the beat. When I framed it up in mind, I sort of had this in mind as what it was gonna look like. But this is just to give you guys an idea of how it will look in the end. So I kind of just like came up with that on the fly. I sort of saw the title before or as we were shooting, and also noticed that this is a little off center. So just turning on my horizon, zooming in a little bit, and centering everything.
The creative athlete.
So it probably won't end up looking like this in the end, but kind of have an idea of the text placement in regards to like the negative space and seeing where the things could live. So creative could live sort of in this block right here, athlete could live in this block, and then the could sort of live in this sort of space right here. And that sort of eye or just ability to see it is just takes time. Being able to develop your own style along the way is going to be purely based off of the things that are relevant in your life. Now that we've picked a track, we've also laid out sort of like a baseline edit or our foundation. I've also plugged in the departure section, which is a minute long, and we got it to about 45 seconds, which is just about perfect. It doesn't have to be exactly a minute, but it just gives you an idea as to how this small portion will feed into the bigger picture. And the next thing I kind of want to dive into is a little bit of color grading. For me, I do everything in Final Cut Pro. What we ended up filming on was S-Log3 on the FX6. And when you first bring it into Final Cut Pro, it's going to default over to Final Cut Pro's version of converting the footage. For me personally, in my experience, I've liked doing it from scratch. So I would go in here and I would just change this to none. So that it's just on the flat S-Log3 profile. And then I would use a third-party software called Dehancer as my baseline. So there's two ways of doing it. You can apply Dehancer straight onto the clip, or you could create a adjustment layer so that you don't have to apply it to all the individual clips. So with this being our base grade, I'll go into Dehancer, apply the base grade. This is also not a free option. You'll have to pay for the software. I'll pick our camera, the Sony FX6, and then we shot it at ISO 800. So it also has a couple pretty cool features, which applies a couple film emulations. For this process, I'm just going to turn it off so that we could just have our base grade. I'm also going to turn off the grain. And from this point, if I turn it off and on, this is pretty much going from S-Log3 to Rec 709. And the reason why we shoot at S-Log3 in the super flat profile is so that we have more information in the highlights and also the midtones and shadows, just in case we need to make any minor adjustments. After we apply our base grade, I could literally drag this adjustment layer across all our clips. And now we have all our clips converted to Rec 709. So I think for this clip, since it is a little overexposed, it'll be a good place for us to dive a little bit into Final Cut Pro's color grading system. So if I click over here in the top right, and if I bring this up, and if we go into our color workspace, our Luma is a little overexposed, and I usually like to keep it at around like 75. So if we bring our highlights down, we can see that we're getting some information back, and it still looks a little overexposed. So I'll just go into my brightness, bring it down a little more. I also noticed that we could give it some contrast and then bring the exposure down just a little bit to hit that sort of 75. And I'm not gonna go through each clip. If you get the shot right as you're shooting it, you don't have to do as much work in post. But sometimes you just don't have creative control over the exposure, and sometimes you just need to get the shot. So what I'm gonna do next is we're gonna create another adjustment layer, and this is our LUT grade. So I could apply a LUT using Color Finale, which is another third-party software, and then we could go into my LUT library, and we could pick, we could just pick something like Kinetic 2. No, not Kinetic 2. You could do like kinetic 3. It's not so warm on the highlights. So this is what it will look like at S-Log 3. And then after applying our base grade, and then after applying our LUT. Sometimes if the LUT just looks a little too strong, then I like to bring it down to like maybe like 75%. And then you can see what it looks like on and off. Yeah. Yeah, so it looks like the shots that we shot on the FX3 was balanced in regards to white balance, and the shots that we shot on the FX6 are a little bit more on the warm end. So what I'm gonna do is just create a quick color adjustment using Color Finale just to move the temperature, make it a little cooler, or like 5400 sort of works. So when choosing the color treatment that you end up like wanting to go with, I usually like to pull up references like movies or things that have inspired me. It looks like for this, some of the reference frames that we have, I probably won't go shot for shot, but I would use these references and then do like a side-by-side comparison just to see like if we match the mood or not. Now that you guys have seen sort of the first cuts, music, a little bit of VO, also played around with the text a little bit and added the color. There are a couple other ways for us to sort of spruce up this scene. And something I've really been enjoying is doing animations as of recently. So for this shot in particular, we're going to animate the word splash onto this video, and I'm going to be doing it with Final Cut Pro for iPad. So first thing I'm going to do is just open up Final Cut Pro for iPad. Going to create a new project. And this is something that I've just been enjoying doing lately. Just giving it that extra, it does take more time, but it's fun. And I'm going to show off this live drawing tool using the Apple Pencil. So I kind of just want to do like something that just kind of just animates like 3 or just some kind of explosion. So we'll do that first. Just like, that kind of just looks like a splash if I put it up there. And then the next animation I'm going to do is I'm just going to write the word out, splash. And I'm hit done. So then it automatically just like animates itself. I play it back. And then we're gonna speed it up in post. So then I'm just gonna export this. Let it export real quick. AirDrop it to my laptop. And then I'm going to put this in the VFX. We're going to create a new folder called VFX. And we're just going to put that in there. And then I'm just going to bring this in and see how that animates. And then we're going to change this to screen. We're going to change the blend mode to screen. Make it a little smaller. And then we're just going to bring it up probably like here. And then this is going to be like towards the end of the clip. And a little faster. So it's like there. A little faster than that too. Maybe here. Yeah. And then the word splash as well. Then I'll bring that in. Speed it up. I'll also make this a screen. And then used to be like a subtle kind of animation where you could see it. So maybe like just right here. It's like a quick subtle. Yeah, and that's about it. It does take more time to develop and create, but depending on your, what you're into at the moment, I'm currently into just drawing out these little animations just to give it just like an extra level of just adding some seasoning, just a little salt and pepper. I don't think anybody else cares, but if somebody else sees it, they'll appreciate it and be like, oh, he actually really put his time and effort into this thing. But for me, I think for me, it's just the internal validation of having an idea and being able to translate that idea onto the screen is more important. So just say, for instance, we were at more so the end stages of exporting. For me, to export for YouTube, I usually just go over here to the top right, export file, and then make sure it's set to H.264, and then hit next. And then I go over into the Creative Athlete. Then we're going to create a new exports folder, and then we could get our export going. And then it's going to render out. And that's about it. All right, so you guys got to see just like a small snippet into a very small section of the video. And ultimately, we're going to 20x that process. This timeline, which is my Sony FX6 China video, is more of a finished product. And if you dive a little deeper in, you can see my storytelling template in action. So right here in the beginning and the intro is the call to action. 2 would be the assistance, being the FX6 driving the story into departure, all the way into approach, crisis, treasure, result, return, new life. And multiple tracks of audio on the bottom. And then you can see the video tracks, and you can also see some of the color grading adjustment layers as well. This FX6 video probably took me about 24 sessions at an hour each. I usually give myself as many days that you film, the same amount of days to edit. So if I shot this in 3 days, I should give myself around 3 full days to edit it. For me personally, I love video editing. I love being able to bring all the elements together into the edit. I think one of the big things I took away from being a video editor is that it helped me develop my vision and my creative decisions, because I know exactly how it's going to look in the edit. All right, you guys, so that pretty much wraps up this entire series. We did the pre-production from planning to scripting to storyboarding. We also went over the gear from filming on the FX3 to filming on the FX6 as well. You guys got to run around with me and see my creative process. We've worked with crew. We've also brought everything into the lab, and we dumped the footage. We placed it on the timeline, and you guys got a first-hand experience into my post-production process. It makes me very sad to say that we've come to the very end of this video series. So if you enjoyed this, or if you have any questions regarding my post-production process, or just the series as a whole, I will be on standby, here to help, here to answer any questions that you guys might have. And for the B&H community, if you have any post-production tips or just things that you've developed in your own way that you can contribute to the comments, please let us know, because I'm always learning and trying to develop new skills as well. And yeah, that's a wrap. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you somewhere on the internet.